Welcome back. So let's talk on this problems, information problem, innovation problem, and the motivation problem in general. Um, let's start with the information problem, which is basically telling that you are not able to um, understand the people, determine people's needs unless you have a price mechanism, which means, if price of something like this is going up, for example, that means people need this more, people want this more. That doesn't matter which one it is. So basically, you start to produce more of this, and and that will solve your problem in the capitalist economy. While in socialism, you don't have this mechanism. Even if you might have state fixed prices fixed by the state, because they are not determined by the market. Basically, then you will have cases like, for example, certain goods are demanded too much and you have lines in front of the stores and you don't have enough to sell those products, and other goods will be demanded less, but you have produced a lot of them. Well, one point is, of course, in social economic system. In capitalist economic system, sometimes certain goods might not also be produced in quantities that will fulfill certain needs. For example, in the United States, famously, healthcare is system is not able to provide sufficient level of healthcare to people to stay healthy in many cases. But of course, in the market, in economic sense, there is no crisis of healthcare demand and supply. Why? Because basically the prices of the healthcare services rise, basically, and that will clear the market. In other words, if too much is there are too many people want this and too little of this product is available, in that case price of this product will increase. As a result, the people who are not able to pay this high price will go out of the line, so the lines will disappear. Socialist economy, of course, could not do that, and that was one deficiency of the socialist economy. So when you have lines, you cannot raise the price and solve the problem. While certain basic needs, like for example the healthcare needs and education needs, well, maybe it might be possible to guess them correctly, at least in most basic sense. While some more fine needs, well, there, for example, how much clothing we will need or how much phone we will need. Guessing those needs, well, that might be a little bit more tricky, especially if you want to have your citizens to have choices and you want them to be part of the consumption culture, where basically they would get as many goods as available to them for their private consumption. Um, and in that sense, actually, social system as it is, it's in its centrally planned form, was not able to act to solve the problem. Again, it has more challenges compared with the capitalist system, but it was not able to act to solve problem. Maybe that type of consumption could be directed in a different way. For example, enhance people's productivity to create varieties of the products, like varieties of glasses. You might have a glass, but that could be transformed by the individuals to the glass you want, or maybe even some community art centers might serve these purposes. But of course, these type of these are just speculations, but this type of potential solutions to this problem of the system could not be developed by the system. Well, innovation problem is basically, the companies don't have any reason to innovate when they don't have competition, or even if they want to innovate, then in that case, those innovations won't be according to the demand of the people. When people demand more of a product, you got the signal that in innovation, a more improved version of that product might be beneficial, so you make innovations accordingly. Well, the critique might be, for the basic social needs, for example, the healthcare problems that is in society again. It is very easy to get actually the social need for innovation, and certain goods that are consumed collectively, like public goods, like needs for parks or green areas, um, or uh, well, uh, even maybe some basic needs, like for example, reducing the sound level in a city. Well, the needs can be basically get, and you can basically collect information for necessary innovations. And if a society is actually making decisions collectively, or well, even in the case when the state is making decisions in the name of the people of a nation, basically they can get some greater basic needs and make innovations that will fulfill those basic needs. Of course, the Soviet Union had made innovations and developed the production level, and also uh, developed also some other innovations which were not directly related to the needs of society. Like, for example, they have developed a space program. Um, well, they, for example, were not able to start or even adapt to the computer revolution, of course. Uh, but this is just a one failure, which was fatal, of course, but or something that tells us overall characteristic of the system can be a major question. And of course, the basic innovations they were not able to do is basic needs. For example, um, designing this phone in a better way to serve the needs of the people. I mean, you understand people, for example, prefer phones that have that are smaller, for example. So you make innovations to decrease the size of the phone, or for example, um, well, you want cars to go better when it snows. If you get complaints from the customers that I mean they have problems with their car when it snows in the city or in their living place. So basically, this lack of that information might not make again the Soviet system to make finer innovations. Again, whether social system could find ways to counter this innovation problem is a question we could ask. Motivation problem is actually the one that's the one that I'm interested a lot, and I hope to work on it in future. The main idea was when they could not get sufficient level of additional money for their productivity differences, people are not motivated to work harder. Well, first of all, Soviet system was able to provide additional monetary gains for the people who were working harder. Whether they distribute that money in efficiently, or whether supposedly those supposed hardworking people were actually friends of some bureaucrats is a question you could ask. In that case, the bureaucracy and overall function, the way factories functioning might be problematic. All the factories themselves actually were in many ways also benefited from the productivity increases. In that sense, maybe the factories have some ways to falsify their records. The information you got from the factory might be problematic in some cases, and that information you got from the factory, I mean, that we could ask whether there could be ways to uh, make those factors to provide information in a better way. Um, so the system might solve the motivation problem with monetary gains, but even monetary gains might not be that much necessary for even creating motivation. In current business world, actually, alternatives to the monetary gains to create motivation are discussed. Things like, for example, Google Earth, which is making a lot of use of work of people without paying those people money show that people don't need to get paid to be motivated. People actually, when they have purpose to do something, or when they get autonomy and decide what to work on, or even when they become master of a certain activity, they got motivated to do that activity. Again, social system wasn't able to find these alternative paths and utilize them. Although to what extent Soviet workers or even supervisors were not motivated is also a question, because productivity in Soviet Union was able to increase all the way up to end of 1970s. Well, in 1980s, Soviet Union and Soviet bloc has entered to a stagnation, but that stagnation, was it because motivation rates dropped, or was it basically, socialism itself has a kind of economic crisis for a different reason, is a question to discuss, of course. So, in terms of motivation, whether there was really a motivation problem in the Soviet Union or not is something that should be looked upon, in my opinion, in a more detailed way. So, this is the end of the communist bloc, and now we have come to the end of our presentation. So when we are coming to the end of starting 1970s all the way to the 1980s, the major end of 1980s, the major building blocks of the USA system was actually basically falling apart one by one. First, USSR has collapsed. Well, USSR was part of the United States world economic system. It stabilized and contained socialism, and it provides an example for the people who want the alternative to the system, and that alternative was also looking at the first look at least worse than the US alternative, and that was something that was stabilizing system by itself. Today, for example, in the United States, there is an enormous effort to tell people how bad the USSR was, but that is something that is not as effective as having this living example of USSR, which again at first looks worse than the USA. And then in 1980s, one by one, many developing countries have left ISI, and actually there's alternative to ISI was created, which was called Washington Consensus, and which was pretty much enforced to the developing countries. It was not created by the developing countries themselves, but the top international agency officials have created this alternative. And then the welfare state was challenged increasingly by different politicians in developed and to some extent developing country. And the idea that there's a need for small government for a better economic system was developed, so which actually has ended welfare state, and it's a kind of Keynes, Roosevelt, Bernstein compromise. Labor unions have lost their power. Labor standards starts to decline in the world, so ILO objectives were declining, and then the monetary system created by the Bretton Woods also has collapsed in 1970s. So you have pretty much many different things that were actually transforming or collapsing in throughout 1970s and 1980s. So what does it mean for the US-based system? Is it collapsing? Is it coming to its end? Or is it just transforming to a new form? We will have a new form of US-dominated world economic system. That's a major discussion. And in today's world, actually, we have gone even further in this we have more experiences which might help us to answer this discussion compared with 1 year ago. But this discussion is basically in full sense the topic of the next week. So we will discuss this collapse and what will happen afterwards in the next week. So see you in the next week. And as always, I hope you will all stay healthy.